My name is Maxim. I work in 0+X. What? I work in 0+X. I'm a software development consultant. And I work as a web developer. So I develop websites, landing pages, dashboards, and such things using JavaScript, React, and CSS and HTML. Pretty standard thing, ordinary web developer. And one day, I was developing some front-end, some landing page, I suppose, or something. It was this spring, when my friend Nikita called me and said, "Hey, Maxim, do you want to join Battlefield 5 development?" I was like, of course I want. Do they need some landing page for this game or some web-related stuff? No, Maxim, they want you there in-game, developing the UI. And he said that I should go through the interview process. But they required to have some test project to look at my code. How does my code look like? And I was lucky enough to be writing an article and developing a pet project clone of CryptoKitties. Do you remember this hype from basically last year? Of cute cats being sold and bought for thousands of hundreds of dollars. I did same, but more boring, with with gradient coins. For some reason, it did not flew up. But the front end for this thing used almost same technologies as Battlefield UI, some parts of it. It was MobX, it was React, it was not TypeScript, because I was very concerned about statically typing JavaScript. I thought, nah, it's not for everyone. Some people might hate it, me included. But anyway, I successfully passed the interview. This is my happy face at first day at DICE. This is my happy workplace at my first days and throughout the half a year of working there. Do you wonder what is this ugly box under one of the monitors, under one of the displays? What? No. This is my lunchbox. No. This ugly box is not a thin client, it's not a radio, it is PlayStation 4 dev kit. And oh, I was so proud to have it on my desk. I was like, I'm a real game developer. I have a real PlayStation dev kit. Like for a few days, I was super proud, and then I was like, Jesus, it's so slow to upload bundle on it. Because I'm used to very fast development cycles when you have hot reload and other stuff like this. We didn't have it on PlayStation. So I would like to tell you a bit of history of project itself, like JavaScript UI. How did they end up with having JavaScript inside basically fast-paced FPS? And it all started on 2013 when Battlefield 4 was released. Back then it was just a little screen inside pause menu, and they used WebKit. It was basically a browser rendering JavaScript UI. But as you can imagine, WebKit is a pretty heavy thing to have inside your game, especially when you need it to run fast and smooth. And during Battlefield 1 development, they had to invent basically their own version of React Native. They had, and still have, renderer, custom renderer, written on C++, and they used the layout system, Yoga, the same one that React Native uses. So basically React Native. And front-end part was pretty like standard. React, MobX for state management, and TypeScript as a language of choice. Now the size of the project. It is pretty damn big, because basically all the games since Battlefield 4 is one big project. How big is it? It's more than 500,000 lines of code. And for a lot of you, it probably still is kind of hard to relate, like 500,000 lines of code, like maybe it's not a lot. You could compare it with 2 Quake 3 engines, which still I can see kind of hard to relate, right? I have something better to compare with. This is me. And I'm 178 centimeters high. And if you would take the whole JavaScript UI code and Battlefield, I must remind you that it's not all the code, it's only JavaScript UI part. If you print it out on standard pieces of paper and stack it beside me, it will be more than 2 meters. It will be more than 2 meters high. And you might think, like, is it even valid to compare like stack of paper with a human to understand how big the code base is? And yes, it is valid. People did it before. This is Margaret Hamilton, who was working on Apollo project, people who sent humans to the moon. So yeah, and as you can see, our stack of paper is still bigger. So another interesting metric that this project has is velocity. It is super high pace velocity. How high pace velocity is it? Let's see at Facebook's React repository itself. Currently, it has a bit more than 10,000 commits, and there are more than 1,000, like 1,200 people working on it since 2000. I don't know when it was released. And we have more than 40,000 commits, and we have only about a few dozen of people committing to the repo. How did we achieve this? Here are 2 secrets. Secret number 1, constantly changing requirements. Basically, every screen was proof of concept up until some kind of release. And you might ask, but didn't you prototype? Didn't you have interactive prototypes with FramerX or maybe Adobe XD? And yes, we had, and apparently with both technologies. But thing is that it is not enough, because designer context, when he designs this interactive prototype, and player context are completely different. He's doing his job. He's like thinking how to logically position the screen so it would be connected and that makes sense inside the game. And player is doing his own stuff. He's buying weapons. He's buying some vanity objects to look cooler on the battlefield. Or he's just looking at his profile crying because of he sucks big times. I don't know. And we solved it with an iterative development process. Basically, we were building from like very basic form with buttons, not even interactive, put it inside the game, have several playtests. Add some logic, so it would be clickable, it would switch screens and such. Have a bunch of playtests. Connect to backend, have some playtests. Polish it, have some playtests, and then realize that, no, it doesn't fit, let's rewrite the whole thing. And it is normal, because the game was changing throughout the development process a lot. I remember rewriting several screens, I think 2 or 3 times at least. Secret number 2, we push directly to master. I don't know how many of you understand. Yeah, you got it. How many of you are web developers? Raise your left hand. How many of you are not developers at all? Raise your right hand. Oh, really? Every one of you are developers, mostly. Almost everyone. You're probably used to the process when you have feature branch, right? Yes, and then you have pull request, it is reviewed, you feel safe because there is a person who took some of this burden of responsibility from you, and you can safely push. No. You push directly to master. Everything is on you. And my happy face during first day, when I saw this, I was like, Jesus. I'm dead. I will break Battlefield. It's all on me now. And on top of this, we had very high quality standards. Look at this. This is funny. This is okay to have. Also this, and people stuck in the walls. Bugs and glitches inside of gameplay, during gameplay, are fun. There are tons of videos on YouTube featuring this. Ragdoll physics, glitches, tanks flying away at insane speeds. But UI bugs are not fun. They're just annoying. And we have millions of players playing thousands of hours every day, and we don't want to let them down. So, how did we deal with all that? And the first thing is not even technical. It is not a secret that you have to have proper communication. And in our case, it was a lot of communication. It was dozens of meetings every day. It was hundreds of email messages every day. And it was thousands of Slack messages every day. And you might ask, Maxim, but when did you work on that? game then. And the thing is that this stuff was required. There really was required a lot of synchronization. So everyone, every member of the team would really understand his part of the job and would really understand the connections that it has with other parts of the game, because it's so big and distributed across teams. Second thing, static typing. The thing that I was kind of reluctant in the beginning, now I see that it helped a lot. We use TypeScript, and I think some of you might remember the example of CoffeeScript. Do you remember what happened to CoffeeScript? Yes. When maintainer basically said that goodbye, I'm not the maintainer anymore, and the project was dead in a few days. So I had to rewrite 2 code bases from CoffeeScript to JavaScript. And some people might be afraid of this happening to TypeScript, and it actually might happen someday. But even considering this, there is so much usefulness in using TypeScript and using static type annotations that it is worth it. It's not only making you feel safe when you change modules, because you know that the remaining parts still connect and work properly together. It also allows you to know more about your code and learn faster. It allowed me as a consultant, where I needed to enforce the team at the time where they needed the reinforcement the most, to dive into the process as fast as possible. And even though I didn't have experience with working with TypeScript at the moment, if it would be written in JavaScript, and I know JavaScript, it would take me longer to figure out how the stuff works than learning TypeScript and learning about the project itself as well. But not every problem can be solved with static typing. Some checks cannot be performed with this tool, so we had to have our own means to verify that we are not pushing some faulty code directly to master. So we had AST checker, and AST means abstract syntax tree. Do I have to explain what is abstract syntax tree? I'm expecting to not have to explain it. And we didn't even have to generate abstract syntax trees for ourselves. TypeScript did it for us. So our AST checker would have a bunch of walkers, checks, small files describing how we traverse these trees and validate that they work properly. And if something is wrong during visiting one of the nodes, it throws an error, and we generate a report through them. Does it remind you of some other project? No idea. Exactly. In our case, it would be TSLint. But we have had a very specific reason why not to use TSLint. The project was and is very big. And with this kind of super high-paced development, we cannot afford to stop and like, look, I think it's time to stop writing console log right here. Let's have some time and rewrite all the occurrences. We have to do it iteratively. So our AST checker allowed us to do this thing. From now on, we cannot use this syntax, this library, this console log, or whatsoever. But all the previous ones are now legit. How did it help us? In several ways. First, it allowed us to promote good practices. For instance, using static typing, one of the good practices, and first thing that comes to my mind, is to prohibit the type any. It's the first thing you want to do, because there is a chain of sanity created by function calls having precise and proper type declaration, and then a hole inviting bad luck to your project. Second thing is typecasting with as keyword. When you use one type as another, expecting that everything will be fine, likely not. Gradual upgrades. As I said, we needed to have it. We needed to be able to move from one outdated library to another soon-to-be outdated library, not stopping in between them, being able to gradually upgrade files one by one. So we had the checks that would prevent you from pushing the non-updated files where you had to rewrite the code to use the new library. And also sometimes it would directly prevent bugs. One of the things I remember is when you declare some component and you override its constructor, you might forget to declare the context there, and then you would try to access it, and bam, on runtime, we have an error, which is kind of hard to debug. Another thing is locales. We had a checker that would validate that we don't use regular strings in our UI. So some Spanish, Hispanic player would not see English translations or whatsoever. What did we learn today? So first thing, communication. There is no such tool that would magically allow you to work on large-scale projects and be successful at it. First thing is to be able to properly communicate, and if it's really big projects, then probably a lot. Second thing, use static typing. It's easy. I think now that it is actually pretty cheap to start using it because you can gradually migrate to TypeScript if you did not do it. And it brings a lot of usefulness, not only making it safer to develop, but also making it faster to develop. And speaking from my experience, after joining DICE, I started a few other pet projects using JavaScript, other than gradient tokens. It was horrible. I felt like I'm in some mud or something, moving super slowly, not understanding like why is not it giving me all that useful information as before. And use linters, because it's most likely that you don't have to write your own AST checker. So use ESLint, TSLint, whatever, CSSLint, it exists. And write custom rules. Don't hesitate to do it. And if you're interested in how to do this, you can go to my YouTube channel. I prepared video specifically for this talk. Really. I put some effort. Have some respect. And also it's funny, I think. I think so. My mom said it's funny. Remember this happy face that is also in front of you. During Battlefield development, I've lost 10 kilos. But it was fun, and I really liked the goodbye party we had. Thank you for being my audience today. Ask questions if you have ones. At first, I found it horrifying, and a few times I actually tried to argue that it might be better to switch to pull requests. I see that it was effective. We were able to deliver in timely manner, high-quality product. In other projects, I would still insist on using peer reviews, pull requests, and this kind of standard thing. I see a lot of value in it, to be honest. Mobex scale super good. It's easy to scale. We had actually a very good experience with Mobex. If you want to talk about this, let's talk after the talk. Don't just raise your hand, just yell. Maxim, question. Sorry. Of course, you're even invited to do this. No, man, what are you talking about? Of course not. Jesus, what a question.
Did you write any UI tests?
Yes, we did. We have quite good code coverage with UI tests. And also, there is a lot of manual testing because we got click-through tests from like game development part itself, because there it is super popular practice. You have to have a lot of people playing your game. So our UI was also tested by a lot of people manually. Yeah.
Is there any ongoing development with it at the moment?
With what?
Any ongoing development? Because I imagine they're releasing new features for the game.
I believe so. Yeah. My contract is over, my mission is accomplished, but I believe they still have a bunch of adventures ahead.
So do they have a sort of stable dev team there to do the stuff?
Yeah. And actually we can do a bunch of applause for part of this team who is also there. They're humble, they're not willing to stand up, but still. Yeah, and of course it's impossible to put this half a year of insanely tightly packed experience in half an hour presentation. But I learned a lot, like, and I'm super grateful to you guys. It was a nice experience. Thank you, everyone.